Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We've had some last minute staff shifts. Somebody went home, so we're just bear with us for a minute. We might end up starting here a couple of minutes behind schedule, but we're going to do our best to stay on top of it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Let's see. No, we're coming up on 6 o'clock right now, but maybe we can start with a quick review of the agenda before we jump into tonight's hearing. So, just go right through looking at item number 1 that has been withdrawn. So we'll just need to make a note of that at the beginning. Item number 2 has also been withdrawn. So same thing there. So item number 3, ZOA 21-00004, which is an amendment to the development code regarding the wireless communication facilities. That one, actually, the planner is not available this evening, so we will have to defer that, unfortunately. So we're looking at the next available meeting, which would be October 4th. Just a reminder, we'll see if there's folks here who cannot come back to that October 4th hearing date. And if that's the case, they can certainly testify this evening. Any questions about that? Okay.
I think we're good. Thank you, Kevin.
Looks like number 4, PUD over on Bogus Basin Road. We are recommending approval. Looks like there's neighborhood opposition and late correspondence was received, so we will be hearing that one. Item number 5, CAR 21-24, a rezone out on Blue Cloud Lane. We are recommending approval. We've not received any opposition, so we can try for the consent agenda on that. Item number 6, a variance, CVA 21-43 over on Pine Avenue. We are recommending approval. It does look like there's some neighborhood opposition, so we will be hearing that one. Item number 7 is requesting deferral to October 4th. So this is CAR 21-23, rezone over on Lusk Street. So we'll be requesting deferral to October 4th. So we won't be hearing that one. Item number 8, PUD 21-38 is also, that one actually, we received some late correspondence to withdraw that application as well. So we'll just need to note that, but no actions needed. Item number 9, CVA 21-41, variance over on Alpine Street. We are recommending denial, so we will be hearing that one this evening. Item number 10, CVA 21-32 over on Lemp Street. Another variance. We are recommending approval, but the applicant is opposed to one condition of approval, so we will be hearing that one as well. And then finally, item number 11, CVA 21-40, a variance over at 2811 West Woodlawn. We are recommending approval and have not received any opposition, so we can try for consent on that one. So kind of in summary, consent would be items 11, 5, and that would be it. Okay. Any questions there?
Thank you. No questions.
Okay, perfect. And I know we're already over 6 o'clock, so I figure we can just jump right into the regular hearing portion right now. So I'll start us off with some general information. So good evening and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing via Zoom has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. You will be promoted to a panelist and then rejoin the meeting after a slight delay. There is also a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. If the chat function isn't available for you, you can also email zoninginfo@cityofboise.org with any technical issues. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go on to the applicant and then the representative for the neighborhood, registered neighborhood association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we will proceed to public testimony, starting with those who signed up on the online sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. Anyone from the public present in person will be asked to raise their hand and approach the dais. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. Finally, the applicant is allowed a 5-minute rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Please be courteous and patient with us while we venture through this hybrid hearing format. And Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thanks, Kevin. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances and appeals, and recommendations to the city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important you give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there's no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one final motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order detailed a few moments ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Dunn.
Here.
Schaefer.
Here.
Blanchard.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Finfrock.
Here.
5 present, 3 absent.
Okay, so let's get started here. We're going to, first, I just wanted to reiterate, I think you heard, but that we have a few withdrawals. We have item number 1. This is CVA 21-34 for White Leisure Development Co. At 513 North Milwaukee Street has been withdrawn. So we will not be hearing that item tonight. Also, item number 2, this is CVA 21-21 for Michaela Todd, deferred originally from September 13th, 2021 at 715 North 17th Street. A variance to encroach into the rear yard setback has also been withdrawn. And lastly, number 8, PUD 21-38 for CSHQA Inc. Requesting that, for at 460 North Milwaukee Street, a conditional use permit for planned residential development has also been withdrawn. So we'll also not be hearing item number 8 tonight. Okay. Next, we have a couple of items for deferral. For item number 3, this is ZOA 21-4 for City of Boise's Planning and Development Services, an amendment to the development code regarding wireless communication facilities, is requesting deferral to October 4th. Is there anybody present tonight to testify in this item who would not be able to return to the October 4th hearing? If you're online, please virtually raise your hand. Or if you're in person, just go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, seeing no hands raised, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer.
I move to defer item number 3 to our October 4th meeting.
Second.
Great, a second from Commissioner Moore. If there is no discussion, will the clerk please call the vote?
Sten.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Blanchard.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Finfrock.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, the next item requesting deferral is item number 7. This is CAR 21-23 for SCB Idaho, requesting deferral to October 4th at 917 South Lesk Street. This is a rezone of approximately 2.5 acres. Is there anybody present tonight who would not be able to return to that October 4th hearing for item number 7? Okay, seeing no hands, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer.
move to defer item number 7 to our October 4th meeting.
Second.
Great, second from Commissioner Moore. If there is no further discussion, will the clerk please call the vote?
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Finfrock.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, so on to the consent agenda. Without objection, I will place the minutes from our August 2nd, 2021 and August 9th, 2021 hearings onto the consent agenda. The next item for consideration. That's not right. Sorry, one second. Hard to turn pages. Is item number 5. This is CAR 21-24 for Falcon One Inc. at 9700 South Blue Cloud Lane. This is an annexation of 13.65 acres. And is the applicant present? If you're online, please virtually raise your hand online. The applicant for Falcon One Inc. Oh, great. I see a hand up there. Jonathan, are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Once you should be able to unmute now.
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. Okay, and is there anybody present that wanted to testify in opposition of item number 5 tonight? Okay, seeing none, then we will place item 5 on the consent agenda. And the last item for consideration is item number 11. This is CVA 21-40 for Rodney Evans and Partners, PLLC at 2811 West Woodlawn Avenue, a variance to encroach the front yard setback. Is there anybody present tonight that would like to oh, sorry, is the applicant present?
Yes,
Mr. Semple, and are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
yes, we are.
Great. And is there anybody present tonight that would like to testify in opposition of item number 11? Okay, seeing none. Item 11 will place on the consent agenda and I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer.
I move to approve the following items with the terms and conditions as written in their respective staff reports on the consent agenda. The minutes from August 2nd and August 9th, item number 5, and item number 11.
Second.
Great, we have a second from Commissioner Moore. If there is no discussion, will the clerk please call the vote?
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Finfrock.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great. Okay, so we'll start up here with item number 4. This is PUD 21-41 for Slitcher Urgent Architecture at 2588 North Bogus Basin Road. This is a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 8 studio apartments and approximately 17,000 square foot addition. And we'll start with staff. Please go ahead, Ms. Garlick.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Before you is a request for a conditional use permit for residential plan development.
Sorry, guys.
Technical issues, one second.
Double dipping tonight and trying to get the job done. Thank you. I appreciate it. Everybody online, just give us a moment. We're just working out some technical difficulties.
This might take just a minute. All right. When it rains, it pours. So I think we can get this going now, though.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Garlick.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Before you is a request for a conditional use permit for residential plan development and a height exception. The project site is 3.98 acres located at 2588 North Bogus Basin Road and is C1D, neighborhood commercial with design review zone. The applicant requests a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 8 studio apartments and an approximately 17,000 square foot addition to an existing 26,259 square foot building. A request for a height exception to 48 feet is also included. The proposal is an addition with a remodel to the existing building. The proposed 17,000 square foot addition consists of commercial space and patio on the first floor, office with associated deck space on the second level, and 8 studio apartments on the third level. The proposal does comply with the plan unit development standards of the development code. The applicant is requesting a 13-foot height exception for a maximum height of 48 feet, where 35 feet is normally required in a C1D zone. This height exception only pertains to the new addition. The addition is designed with a shed roof sloping south to north. The proposed addition is designed to be cohesive with the existing single-story building, which sits at 19 feet tall. The second floor of the addition is proposed at approximately 14 feet tall for the office space, and the third story at 13.5 feet tall for the residential use. The design also includes mechanical units on the roof. Mechanical screens would go to a height of 48 feet. Late correspondence was received from the Highlands Neighborhood Association, the Pender Village HOA, and several nearby residences. In total, 38 letters were received. A summary of the comments and requests are as follows. A request to move the trash enclosure to the north away from nearby residences, eliminate cut-through traffic to the private neighborhood, to provide gates, restrict restaurant or drive-through use in the new development and only allow retail, provide perimeter fencing or landscaping to maintain privacy, and step back the massing on the south side of the proposed addition near the residences. Planning staff does recommend approval with conditions. Final decision tonight for the PUD 2141, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Before we get to questions, we'll ask to hear from the applicant. Oh, yeah, it's your turn. I'm trying to look online too. I don't know where anybody is. Thank you. Please start with your name and address and you'll have 10 minutes. No, just go ahead and try to click that on.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, and Delaney is going to pull up my presentation. It's pretty quick and brief.
Great.
My name is Brett Galosh. I'm with Slister Ugrin Architecture. Thank you for hearing our PUD application tonight. I'll keep this quick and just wait just a second until she pulls up the slide. Okay. Quick highlights. The owners, we kind of worked with the owners representations and the owner's representative. And they recognize that this site it's got some great tenants, but overall the site is currently underutilized. So this is kind of a good opportunity, and really what this proposal is about is aiming to revitalize an existing building through a facade upgrade, which is the existing part, and then as well as adding some additional square footage to provide commercial, office, and housing opportunities. Overall, we feel this proposal will re-energize the site and benefit the neighboring community. Speaking to the height exception, I think Delaney actually nailed it pretty spot on. A big driver of the height is really the existing building. The existing building floor to roof sits at 19 feet 4, and that was really where we placed our second floor. And a lot of that is really about creating a second floor that then can open up to the north and south for daylighting and be able to have deck space that opens up. And that kind of ended up driving the height exception. From there, we do, and then from there, the second floor is an office space, is kind of planned for office. So it's kind of a 14-foot floor to floor, which is a pretty common office use. And then the floor above it, level 3, is going to be dwelling units, and those have got about a 10-foot ceiling. So that kind of is another 13 feet when you include the overhang and roof slope at a shed roof. So that's kind of the quick note on that. As we go to the next slide, we'll just kind of address comments. The trash enclosure, it is a CMU trash enclosure. Right now, they've got trash enclosure. They don't have a trash enclosure. They've got dumpsters behind Bogus Basin, and it's kind of a mess. So I think that resultantly, there probably is some hesitation to have a dumpster near anybody. These locations will be trash enclosures. So I think the trash will be placed in an enclosure, in the dumpster within an enclosure. So I think it will be a much more sanitary and cleanly environment, as well as it's really a pragmatic location. They're kind of located to the back of the building, as well as we're providing access for the guidelines of the trash collection agency. The cut through traffic concerns, there is an existing cross-access easement. This cross-access easement was put into place when the residential was put in there, when the residential was built for there. I'd be likely to guess it's served both the tenants fairly well, and I'd also guess it's also for fire. It's kind of a big driver of what those lanes are for. All spaces, to jump to the third item that was concerns, all spaces within the proposal are part of the city zoning and the comprehensive plan. There isn't not going to be a drive-through on that new side. There is an existing drive-through, which is where Mocha Moose is. And one note on that is the owner is really working. The owner and the owner's representatives are working to keep all the existing tenants. They want to continue those tenants. They like those tenants. They've been good, long-standing tenants, and are hoping to keep them, as well as allow them to breathe, maybe adding a little bit more space to their existing place. Preserving landscaping, we are going to hope to and trying to preserve as much as possible. There are lots of mature landscaping there. Sadly, there is some mature landscaping along Bogus that's been pretty hammered by the Idaho Power tree mitigation measures. So I think there will be some mitigation of some of that is kind of damaged. And then per building massing, I think the building is consistent with adjacent commercial properties. So with that, thank you. The applicant agrees with the staff report, and so I stand for questions.
Thank you. Before we get to questions, I'll ask to hear do we have a representative from the Highlands Neighborhood Association? Mr. Bradley, please come on up.
Come on down.
That's right. And Brett, as soon as we're finished with this, then we'll do
Do I have
questions.
to lower my face mask briefly?
No, unfortunately, we
Okay.
ask that you keep them, but if you could speak to the mic so that our commissioners online can hear too.
Okay, Jeff Bradley, 311 West Highland View Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83702.
Can you just take a step closer so you're closer to that mic there? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Jeff Bradley, 311 West Highland View Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83702. President of the Highlands Neighborhood Association. A couple of comments. I got 20 minutes.
You'll have 10 minutes, same as the,
Okay.
same reflected the
I just
developer.
had a couple of photos and I was going to cede the remainder of my 10 minutes to the Pender Village HOA. And I'm not quite sure why these comments were considered late comments. I submitted my comments before the deadline on Thursday. And moreover, we're against the whole conditional use permit because based on the proximity of this building and the height of the building, it adversely impacts the livability of several residents, significantly impacts their livability. If you could, there's one called Ink.
Sorry, we just need you to keep speaking to the mic. So we
There's
can
one
capture
called
that
Inked. If
forever.
you could pull that up, please. It's called Inked. It's probably one of the last files. Yeah, that's fine. So if you look at that photograph, the line that is coming toward the screen is where the curb is going to be. Actually, that's where the building is going to be. Where the curb is going to be is where I parked my car, and you can see a residence there to the right. And if you look, I drew a line up. The current building is about 20 feet high. From this view, it would go up past the top of the screen there. And there's a reason we have a 35-foot height restriction in C1Ds because you don't wake up to have a 50-foot wall next to your home one morning. And you don't have a Panda Express sitting there either blowing fumes on you. So this development is significantly close to this residence. And if you pull the other inked photo, please, up. I pulled it back a little further. I took a couple of these photos. There you can, that's a different perspective when I pulled back from my car. So where my car is where the beginning of the parking lot is. or the parking space is, and that's how tall that building is going to be. That building is way over the trees. There is nothing around there that is that tall. So anyway, with that, I will take my thumb drive back and cede the rest of my time to Pender Village. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Please start with your name and address.
Okay. Mr. Bradley, you're way taller than me. Hi, I'm Amy Hutchinson Connor. I live at 2488 North Bogus Basin Road. I am the president of the Pender Village Neighborhood Association, Homeowners Association, and I asked for you to consider our comments regarding the Highland Station remodel and addition project. So Highland Village, as it's represented, was built in 2005, ahead of its time, right? We have 41 units. We've got 3 unique building structures, 2,000 square foot floor plans in each of the units, 2 car garages, walk-up entries, and lastly, 16 units with elevator access entryways, 4 buildings, 4 elevators, as you can imagine, pretty expensive. Without question, a perfect location for attracting various age groups, lifestyles, all close to downtown restaurants, hiking trails, age groups, all over. They enjoy the natural drainage from Crane Creek that we actually, as an organization, we maintain. We prevent overgrowth and prevent any harmful damage to the apartments adjacent to the creek. Overall, it's a neighborhood that enjoys their wildlife habitat next to them. At a public meeting that was held by the developer on July 14th, we were presented information that was pretty incomplete, to say the least. There were 11 individuals that attended the meeting. 9 of them were homeowners from Pender Village. The project manager was not in attendance. There wasn't any information on materials, colors to the facade, what types of material or retail to anticipate. The request for a height exemption to 48 feet was not also presented. No follow-up was ever given to us when we requested this information, including what type of retail that they were identifying as part of the first floor. Will it be a quick serve restaurant? Will we have grease traps to worry about and smells and odors that could affect our homes that are literally less than 50 feet away? No notification of a height exemption again was given or when we requested information. We believe the proposed development has not thoroughly considered the proximity and the effects it places on our neighborhood, Pender Village. Maintaining their safety and current neighborhood livability is my primary concern. Please consider the following points. Number 1, this is a point that has not been addressed in any of the plans. I'm trying to bring attention. There's a drainage retention pond on property that, and according to the landscaping plans, it's not called out, but it's being covered. To any of you that have driven by or been to that area, it literally fills up with water every winter and it sits there all winter long. It's a major safety hazard. There's no fence around it currently today. And last winter, we had a car slide into the middle of the pond. On page 21, and I don't know if you can bring it up, of the P&Z packet, is an image of the retention holding pond that was installed in 2019. This was also the result of the constant flooding in the parking lot due to improper drainage. The design to alleviate the water within 48 hours has really not been achieved. We continually have to see and assist the developer, the property owner, to pump it out and use our right of way. The developer is planning to cover it up to gain more parking. Our homeowners are continually concerned and express through us, how is this going to fix itself? Because we still have water in our crawl space. We see this also to be an eyesore to the landscape plan in and of itself. So lastly, what is the plan to remediate the standing water in the retention pond? Second, the building expansion location and the height exemption request. There was no prior notification, as I've stated. The south side as the target and the misstatement of the project explanation, in quotes, will not adversely affect other property in the vicinity. This height exemption is an immediate impact to our neighborhood, visually and audibly, from the increased noise and overall usage. Pender Village has 8 buildings that also complied to the current height limit of 35 feet. There's also a misstatement on the first floor matching the height of the existing building for uniformity and architectural compatibility. The building is only 1 floor, the entire building at 20 feet. Is it necessary to add 2 more floors that are more than 10 feet per floor? I understand the commercial standards, but would the developer consider 2 floors and adjust the first floor height to 14 feet? We believe the 4 acres are available property where this development is currently planned is large enough to possibly reposition the proposed extension, either west or north portion of the building. In the winter, the way that this is positioned, the sun does not hit that roof the way that they have it laid out. You will have standing water that does not thaw. There is a lot of thought that needs to go into this. We want to be partners. We want to live and be happy, and because we love where we live. But we request that the proposed development consider our concerns on behalf of the livability of our neighborhood. We are requesting the developer to fund and install security gates needed to prevent cut-through traffic usage on our private road. Rejection of the height exemption for 48 feet. Conditional use permit against any restaurant style retail. Number 4, move the current dumpster placement at the southwest corner away from the established residences. And number 5, present a landscape design plan for the remediation of the drainage pond. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so now at this point, we will entertain questions from the commission for staff, the applicant, or the neighborhood association.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I have a few questions for staff and the applicant. I think I'll start with staff. I'll probably circle back and ask more questions. So Delaney, so if I am recalling correctly, the townhouses to the south, or condos to the south, are 3 stories. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, that is correct.
Okay. And are they right at the height requirements for the zone, right at 35 feet?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, yes, they would be at I'm not sure if all individual buildings are at that, but the max would be 35 feet and they're not exceeding that.
Okay, terrific. And then Delaney, by chance, do you know across the street over at Healthwise, what is the approximate height of Healthwise? I know it's in a different zone as well.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, I wouldn't know the exact height on that. I do believe it's constructed to that 3-story style as well, but being that it's commercial, it may exceed that 35 feet. I'd have to verify that.
Okay, terrific. Okay, and then Delaney, do you know, so the cross-access agreement to the south, it appears, we have essentially two drive aisles that sort of terminate, into this parking lot. So is the cross-access agreement, and maybe this might be for the applicant too, but I want to get a little more information on that cross-access agreement. Does it apply? I assume it applies to both those drive aisles. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, that would be correct. The cross-access agreement would be for the residents to this commercial property.
Okay, true. I'm guessing that it's also for fire access as well. So maybe this might be for the applicant actually. Have you all explored with the fire department, gating that cross-access as the neighborhood is requested?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, we have not currently talked with fire about gating or doing that. It's not something we're necessarily opposed to. I think we just wanted to start the conversation. I will say one of the things we did do and one of the things we have increased, I think, is fire access on our property. I believe the existing site, and just as a backup to the existing building was originally a little bigger. So, and I think I believe it was 90s, 99, I believe they lopped off a big portion of that building. And then in doing that, they kind of created kind of what it is now, which is a little bit of haphazardness. I think they also actually sold off property to that south lot. But yeah, we have not pursued any options with the fire chief or
Okay.
fire.
You're not necessarily opposed to having that discussion though.
No, I think that's a worthwhile discussion, but I think it's also, I think this, the easement has been, I think predominantly is for the neighbors.
Mhm.
So
Gotcha. Okay. Madam Chair, can I continue?
Go ahead, Commissioner Schaefer.
Couple more for the
Mhm.
applicant. Just to confirm too, so I see two trash enclosures on the site plan. Those are both new, correct? So you have
correct.
one on each the west corners of the building.
Yeah, the intent is recognizing that it's a big property, and to ask tenants to carry trash from one corner to the other isn't as realistic as locating two. I think space also made it more pragmatic to have, you start getting those trash enclosures get big real quick, as I'm sure, you look at those design guidelines. So if you really want to provide proper trash that's not going to be overflowed and going to have the amount of capacity you need, I think it's best to really locate it in two different spots.
Mhm.
Additionally, given the perimeter length of the building.
Yeah, okay. And then to that point too, so it'd be the southwest corner trash enclosure, so nearest the improvements that you're proposing to the building. So there's an area behind the trash enclosure, sort of no man's land currently. Looks like just asphalt. The drive aisle just terminates right there. From what I can gather, it looks like the property line is actually, well off that curb line. So on this graphic here, you see the trash enclosure, then a curb line, and then I believe the property line is further back. Again, no man's land currently, just asphalt. Are you opposed to extending the landscape behind that trash enclosure just to provide additional screening in that area?
It's definitely something we would be willing to entertain. And the trash enclosure was set on the setbacks. So, and that's kind of, I think it's the 10 or 15 feet per whatever the commercial abuts to a residential zone. So.
And then, Madam Chair, if I can continue.
Commissioner Schaefer.
One more. And this is probably the biggest question. I love the mixed use aspect of this project. I think I understand why you located the additional stories on the south side of the building. But having said that, did you explore adding those stories on the north side of the building, away from the residences?
We did not. A big reason is kind of, that it's the functionality of the dollar only goes so far. And I think if you want to build up, it's best to, if you're going to add an addition, it's best to continue to stack that addition for pragmatism. A lot of this design is very effective and very efficient. If you look through the kind of the images, you can kind of see where we've kind of run our column lines are all in the same spot. And it's just efficiency of building is kind of why it was the result of it being 3 stories and kind of getting a nice tight, compact little building addition to there. So
You mean just going up above like where
vertical,
the Mocha Moose is instead of above, like, so still doing the same vertical, but on the other side of the.
Right.
Oh, and are you saying on the entire north, like taking this,
Yeah,
this remodel, and
Taking the
putting it
extra
on
2
the north?
stories and putting them above
Yeah, on the
Mocha
north
Moose.
side.
We did a couple options and iterations. There was an iteration where we looked at a separate building. That separate building was actually going on to the north of where Mocha Moose is, or to the north of that drive-through. This seemed to be the most pragmatic. I think it's also a little serendipitous that there used to be a building there too. So it's kind of putting it back almost where it was. The original building was built in the 80s by Smiths, and it actually extended about 90 feet to the south. This again was well before the residential was in there, and they also had a larger lot. When Albertsons bought it, they lopped off about 100, it was 90 feet is what it was, of that building to kind of make a more boutique grocery store. And I think since then it's really been an underutilized area. So.
Okay. I'll yield for right now, but I might have some more.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
So a question for staff. So will the next steps on this is to go through DR?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Moore, that would be correct. A design review is requirement before building permit.
Till I have it a moment.
I have a question while we're at it. What is the distance from that neighbor to the building? And are they, I know it's in the packet, but please refresh my memory. Is there a variance request for that setback?
Yeah, Madam Chair, the distance from the proposed addition to the residence to the south is approximately 59 feet. They are not asking for any variance requests, so they are meeting all required setbacks. So the footprint of the building is meeting the rear, front, side, everything's compatible in that
Great.
sense.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
Okay.
Schaefer.
two more.
Yep.
One for Delaney, one for the applicant. Delaney, anything we need to do in regards to a possible drive-through use in the addition? For the life of me, I can't see how a drive-through would ever work with what they're proposing. Having said that, I just want to make sure I didn't go back and read back through the code section regarding drive-throughs in this zone. So is there any sort of condition, if we wanted to add a condition about no drive-throughs, is there anything we need to do there?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, in order for them to your request a drive-through at this zone and location, it would require an additional conditional use permit. And our code does not typically allow the drive-through within, I believe it's 200 or 300 feet of a residential. So they would have to come through asking for like an exception to that.
Okay, terrific. Great. Thank you. And then Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
To the applicant, can you speak to, I actually had the same thought regarding, I know that the retention pond in the parking lot is relatively new and quite large. Can you walk us through, I see you proposing some new parking there where that's currently located. So can you walk us through the storm drain system, the thoughts, the plans there?
Absolutely. It does have a high water table. So one of the things we're looking at is an underground seepage bed. All the gray areas on the site plan that are indicated in the parking lots would actually be pervious pavers to address that. And in all actuality, I think a majority of that parking lot is going to be a seepage bed based on the current water depth, as well as just the way to mitigate that. And in truth, I think biasly, I think that's actually the best way to mitigate this water. I think that the open retention pond, as I think is evidenced from the nice woman speaking earlier, isn't the most effective methodology. So
Great.
Just circle back. I was reminded by my associate, another reason for locating the building on the south side is really just the impact to current tenants. There are tenants in the entire north side. Bogus Basin is up there, Mocha Moose and Lulu's. The church is in the kind of the central. So this south side of property is the least impactful for the existing tenants. Because I think you can kind of work around a church a lot easier than you work around Bogus Basin or Mocha Moose or Lulu's. So.
Great. Actually, that brings me to one more. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I've been saving my questions. You're obviously the use of this building originally was a grocery store. So in the back, we have a loading ramp, dock, et cetera. So obviously with this plan, you're proposing to remove those facilities. That obviously could be replaced in the future if needed. But at this point, with this plan, the intention is that the church, how long has the church been leasing? How long do they intend to lease? That removing that ramp just kind of changes the functionality of that building. So anything you can speak to there?
Yeah, I mean, I think this, the church has just signed a long-term lease. I'm not sure if I'm able to disclose how long that is, but it is a fairly long lease. I would say that it is more than 3 to 5. It is a little bit upwards in a double digit without saying it. So they're there for the long haul. I also can speak to Bogus Basin has been a long-term tenant and the owner is very interested in keeping them. They're still in kind of talks. And that's, I think just to speak of, the retail and what's going to be there is, we're in early conversations. I mean, the we have to, so you got to start somewhere, and you have to get kind of the entitlements going to be able to get tenants interested, to be able to commit people. So I think that's kind of all very flexed. I think the abandonment of the loading dock is a good call. I think it actually will provide a full fire lane and access to that area. And now it's a little dodgy if you go back there. There's kind of a big yellow pole that kind of sits out in what would be your driveway if you're back there. So it will, I don't believe the owner ever wants it to go back to a grocery store or have that kind of capacity for loading, if you will. Hopefully that answers.
Okay, thank you for that.
I have a question along those lines. So if there was going to be a business change there, if a Panda Express wanted to come in, for example, would they have to come back to the planning department for a CUP? Is there any other form of approval to allow the businesses there to change in and out?
Yeah, Madam Chair, for the business, for restaurant use that is allowed in a C1 zone, if it was the drive-through that's when we're going into the new entitlement processes, ultimately it's going to be a TI with design review at that stage.
Great. And that would happen whether this addition was granted or not.
Correct.
The
The
same
whole site is
process.
C1D, so that would be applicable to any tenant space in the existing building as well.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're good to move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we'll go to public testimony. If you are online and would like to testify on this item, please virtually raise your hand. If you're here in person and would like to testify on this item, please just come right on up to the podium. Please start with your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Jeff Hudson. I live at 2520 North Bogus Basin Road at Pender Village. Our private neighborhood is directly south of the proposed development we are discussing today. The neighborhood meeting held on July 14th provided us no specific information other than it would be a 3-story project on the south end of the existing building. They had no measurements of the proposed building footprint, only approximate footages hand-drawn on an aerial photo view with a Sharpie. The location of on-site dumpsters, plans on how they would prevent cut-through traffic into our private neighborhood, sound barrier wall or perimeter fencing, landscaping, air emissions from potential restaurants, not only from preparing the food, but also all the byproducts, grease, waste, trash, etc., as well as patio space to provide indoor-outdoor use on the south side of the building, to just a few feet from our decks and bedroom windows, and most importantly, a height variance. All the things I mentioned and more could negatively impact the quality of life we currently enjoy in our small private community. One of our biggest concerns is the massive structure and wall of windows that will face our neighborhood and tower above our existing buildings. I don't think anyone can truly envision what that will look like with the pictures provided unless you stood in the parking lot with the measurements given and see it in person. I think before a height variance to 48 feet is granted, I would invite the Planning and Zoning Commission to come to the site and personally see what a huge decision this is and the negative consequences it would have on our community. My residence, 2520, is the one we've seen in the picture, the closest one to the development. The trash dumpster they're talking about is 10 feet from the property, which is right outside my master bedroom windows. And outdoor patio, which we use it as an extension of our home several months of the year. You can only imagine our worry about the smell, attraction of bugs and animals, and the noise from the garbage truck in the early morning hours when it comes to empty it. We ask that this location be moved to a more central location or to the north end of the property with the other dumpsters. In closing, we think this design has too many negative impacts in the established upscale Pender Village condos, and that another location on the property be investigated or a redesign of the project proposed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Is there anybody else here in person, please? Is there anybody else beyond this? We'd like you to just kind of queue up so we can see who's coming up next. Thank you.
My name is Holly Hudson. I live at 2520 North Bogus Basin Road. My condo is the closest and most impacted by the proposed development. In the current plans, there is a garbage dumpster located in the southeast corner of the property, approximately 10 feet from my master bedroom window and patio. It's like this distance right here. The location is very intrusive to my quality of life due to the smell, flies, animals. We have feral cats back there and garbage trucks coming early in the morning, which they do already, which we can hear on the north side. I can't imagine it being 10 feet from my master bedroom window. I respectfully request that the dumpster be moved to a centralized location with the other dumpsters on the north side of the property. Because Pender Village is a quiet, private community with only 41 residents, this proposed development as planned is threatening the life we've grown accustomed to. The current proposal has a conditional use for commercial, which could include food, beverage, restaurant space on the first floor of the south side, approximately 55 feet actually, because we've measured it, from our property. This is extremely concerning due to the smell, emissions from grease, and potential late night hours of operation. I really don't want a band out on the patio playing till 10 o'clock at night. I respectfully request that the conditional use only be for retail on the first floor of the south side and exclude food, beverage, restaurants. Lastly, to maintain the integrity of our private, quiet community, I would request that the owner of the property provide private fencing, gates for cut-through traffic, and landscaping on the north end of our property to insulate us from the planned retail and apartment development on the south side. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Sir, please start with your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is David Stadden. I live at 2514.
If you could maybe just pull that microphone up so we can hear you a little better. Yeah, there you go.
My name is David Stadden. I live at 2514 North Bogus Basin Road, neighbors to Jeff and Holly Hudson. Our community consists of, as Amy said, 41 units. Their values have been selling in the neighborhood of 500 to 600,000. Ours are right on the creek, which we prefer have the wildlife and so forth. Our community, as Amy stated, consists of 16 units that have elevators and 16 units on the Bogus Basin side. And both of those are 3 stories. Ours on the creek, there's 9 of them are 2 stories. We have 3 points of ingress and egress to our property. The 2 on the north immediately feed onto the parking lot that is the subject of this proposed project. The south ingress and egress comes directly off of Bogus Basin Road and curves off of the road and feeds these 2 streets. There's no on-street parking. And what we find often is people come, they use that ingress off of Bogus Basin to get to the businesses that are the subject of this development. And we have a number of minor children and often visiting grandchildren that use our private streets that are about 150 feet long to ride their scooters, skateboards, and so forth. And our concern is that with the increasing traffic coming through there, that it won't be as safe as it is. There are 2 blind corners on the south end, and 16 of our units have garages that have very short driveways. And you have to actually be in the street on those 16 units to even see if somebody's coming or not. In addition to that, about 25% of our owners are elderly, which can impact their reaction time. So that's one of our big concerns and why we have asked that fences would be provided to eliminate that drive-through traffic. Excuse me, just 1 second. I think that about covers, try not to repeat the other things that were said, but our big concern, I'm a retired police commander, and I'm very concerned about security and the safety of traffic passing through there. And therefore, we would like to have some gating done there to protect our lifestyle there.
Time.
Thank you, Mr. Stadden. Is there anybody else here in-house that would like to speak on this item? Okay, moving online, we will start with John Connors. John, please unmute yourself when you're ready. Start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Well, good evening. My name is John Connors. I want to thank Madam Chair and the committee members. My wife and I were the first people to move into this community in 2008. The developer designed this community to be a model for smart design. They wanted to go and have wonderful homes on a small footprint. And many people that moved here wanted to get away from sprawl. We don't want to live in Meridian or Cuna. We want to have smart growth around us. I understand the property to the north of ours wants to further develop his property, but I would hope that the City Planning and Zoning Commission stands by the 35-foot height adjustment and stands by that, because we want to keep the concept of smart growth still going. In this modern era, we don't want more sprawl in the North End. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. Do we have anybody else online that would like to speak to this item? Please virtually raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Now we'll move back to the applicant for a 5-minute rebuttal. Please start again just with your name for the record.
My name is Brett Galash with Solicitor Ugrin, and I'll add my address because I believe I forgot it the first time. We're
Thank you.
at 415 South 13th Street, Boise, Idaho 83702. Sorry, and apologies about that. I'll keep it quick. I think I'll open the same way I typically open rebuttals is change is hard. And I think all ships rise with the tide. I think that there will be some heartache as the construction process goes. I think that is what it is. But I think overall, what the owner and the representatives are trying to do, I think is a good thing. John talked about smart growth, and I think that's a good point. And I think what we're providing is a mixed use building. And I think we're building on an existing building that can sustain it. I think if you drive by that site, it's underutilized. And I think that this will create more vibrancy, more re-energizing the building as well, and re-energizing that whole corridor. So I think that is what smart growth looks like. For building heights, I think that while it seems like a big number, I think that those buildings are currently at 35 plus. I mean, I think that we say, 35 is the max, but 35 is kind of mid-slope for a ridge residential building. So it could be upwards to 40. I don't have a good measurement of it. Otherwise, I would share it. And I think if there's any others, I think, and my hopes with the cleaning up of the seepage bed and with the kind of underground retention and opening up that other alleyway, maybe it will alleviate traffic concerns. I think that you are providing, there are 4, I believe, entrances to the site. So to me, it doesn't quite make sense that people would drive through there a lot because I actually think that it's a little bit of an inconvenience. I don't question that they do. I'm sure they do. I just don't quite understand how drivers work sometimes. And I don't know if I ever will because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 current entrances on our site that are either off Bogus or off Park Hill Drive. So that should be sufficient for people getting access to it. With that, I do thank you for your time. We do stand and we acknowledge and accept the conditions of approval. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll close the public portion of the hearing, and the item is now before the commission.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
I move that we approve PUD 2141 with all the conditions in the staff report.
Do we have a second? I guess not. Okay. So that motion is dead. Still open for a motion.
I'll take a stab at it.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I move to deny PUD 21-41.
Do we have a second?
We're conflicted this evening.
Okay, that motion is dead too.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
I don't know if this will work, but so I move that we approve PUD. Sorry, 1 second. 21-41 and amend the condition, the height exemption to defer for a separate variance. Is that allowed?
So you are suggesting that we would hear the height exception
Separately. At a
separately?
later date.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, we might have legal sound off.
I know I see Miriam pulling the trigger over there.
Yes,
Yes.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Moore, I believe, given that this is a complete application with this as an exception requested under this PUD, that it would be a denial of
Yeah.
this PUD and a request to the applicant to come back with a different application. To cut this height exception out as a separate process, I think would be duplicative of the purpose and intent of this application.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Okay, so what I suggest is that you make your motion maybe without that deferral part of it, and then we can at least get the conversation going and see where we're headed.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I move that we deny PUD 21-41.
I'm going to second.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Schaefer. Who would like to start the discussion?
I'll start.
Commissioner Moore.
So my biggest hesitation over approving the height exemption, and really it's just the height exemption. I think the use, where you located that expansion on the previously demolished portion of the building, that makes sense to me. The height exemption, looking at, based on our discussion, the surrounding buildings are 3 stories. In the surrounding zones are 35 feet, and I think C2 is 45 feet. So even with some of the surrounding zones, it's still a height exemption. And that's kind of where my biggest hesitation lies is with that height exemption. I struggle to find an adjacent property, an adjacent zone, something to kind of justify that or make it cohesive. In looking at, I know one of the things in our staff report on page 224 was, it's intended to be cohesive with, or that first floor is intended to be cohesive with the existing single-story building. And looking at kind of the elevations, I know this isn't design review, but it still has a little bit of a different massing. So I'm not entirely, not to design from here because it's impossible. There's so much that goes into this. Entirely sure that I agree that it's achieving that, I guess. So just a little bit hesitant to approve the height exemption in this location, just with the surrounding properties.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Obviously, I'm going to be supporting the motion. That my reason for proposing to deny was completely in line with Commissioner Moore's. I love the project. I love the use. I completely agree. The site is underutilized. I completely agree. The site needs improvements for the stormwater system. I love the permeable pavers that you're exploring to correct some of those issues. But like Commissioner Moore, my only hesitation is the height exception, right? And I think that I totally understand too. I love the tenants. I love the use of the site, and I get that piece of it, that you want to leave those tenants in place. But at the end of the day, it's a large site. I think there's some other opportunities to add building square footage and other locations of the site that have less impact to the surrounding properties. And I think that, as Commissioner Moore was saying too, that, if there were some other buildings in the vicinity that were in the 50-foot, range, I think that creates more opportunity for us to really consider this deviation in the height. But as it stands right now, I mean, most everything in that vicinity is right around that 35-foot height. So I have a hard time getting to 47 and allowing that. So it's a tough one. It's a really hard one because I love it. I love it. I love the use. I love the improvements. It's a dated building. It needs a facelift. But unfortunately, I just can't get there on the height. So that's where I'm standing right now.
I'm actually not going to support the motion. I also don't think the height is appropriate. But I think that I would rather see them given the opportunity to rework it, or we would continue to approve the PUD at the 35-foot height without the variance to the height. Because I think I love seeing mixed use. I think that there's more that they can do with the space. So I hate to deny the whole project because of that. So I won't be supporting the motion. I'd rather see it deferred or approved with the 35-foot limit.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
I'm also not in support of the motion, only because these kind of failed mall developments are plaguing us, frankly, all across the country. And this is, frankly, what I think is an excellent example of adaptive reuse. The building, I think, across the street, which is one of the architecture firms, and Healthwise, because it's up on a berm, I mean, that thing has got to be 60 feet or something when it tops out. So I don't see the height as being an issue. The trash enclosures, I don't see as being an issue because you've already got commercial traffic in there. It's going to be noisy regardless. This is an example of smart growth. This is exactly what we want, is an adaptive reuse project like this. Frankly, I think that whole site could benefit from being way more intensively used. I'm still kind of bugged by how much parking is there in that space, frankly. And so I think this is a great first step at redeveloping this site. And I don't have a problem with the height exception whatsoever, because I think it's justified in that area just because of what we see across the street already, which is, I know it's got to be far higher than what this is. So anyways, there you go.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Finfrock.
I wasn't really sure on which way I was going to go on this one, so I thank my commissioners for making that argument. I'm not going to support the motion either. I know there's a height issue, and I do think it probably adversely affects the other properties directly in that area, but I do think it's an appropriate place for increased density, and I don't think I'll be supporting the motion as well. I think that we probably could use the higher density, and I think it's an appropriate place to put it. So I will not be supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you. So with that, let's go ahead and take the vote, and then we'll see what we can do.
Ted,
No.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Blanchard,
No.
Moore,
Aye.
Finfrock,
No.
Motion fails, 3 opposed, 2 in favor.
You gotta try again. So I think that I see us having a couple options here on the motion. We could either defer the project and ask them to take another stab at it and see what they can do to, try to onboard some of those neighbor requests a little bit more. Or we can make a motion to approve, or we could make a motion to approve and scratch condition number 2, which is the height exception. I'm open to any motions, though.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Finfrock.
I move to approve PUD 21-41 along with the standard and recommended condition or terms and conditions, with the exception to number 2, with the height variance being denied or limited to 35 feet.
Great. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer.
not to leave the motion hanging, but we had input from legal previously. The height exception was sort of material to this application. So
only that it, so to clarify that, only that it, so sometimes we say, wow, we could approve the conditional use permit now, but we'll deny the other separate application, that's sometimes submitted as a joint application. But in this case, because it is one application, we can't hear them separately, but we can always adjust conditions of approval. So since the height variance is a condition of approval, we can do what we'd like with that. We can either adjust it to say 35 feet, we can remove the variance, that part of it. So I think that's what Commissioner Finfrock is attempting now, is that the project would be approved at a 35-foot height instead of the variance that they're asking for the height.
thank you.
You're welcome. So we're still looking for a second for that motion, if we so choose. Okay. We can't get out of this without a motion. So that we can, that motion, are you ready to second? Or are we gonna, no? Okay, so that motion is dead then.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
was wondering if the applicant would be willing to come back in and redesign or kind of study that 35-foot height and come back in at a later date.
I guess the question to you is, would you rather us defer to take another stab at it? And we could do that to just next, the next meeting, which is in, 2 weeks, maybe a week, based on that we're late in the month. Or we can push forward at that, what would probably sounds like it would end up being at that 35-foot limit. Sure. Why don't you come up to the mic? That would be great, just so we can capture it for the record.
Greg Ugrin, Solicitor Ugrin Architecture, 415 South 13th. Clarification on the 35-foot. According to the code, 35-foot on sloped roofs is usually to mid-height. So all of the townhomes to the south to exceed that. The style of this.
And Madam Chair, I'm sorry, the public hearing section is closed. So if we do start taking new information in.
Got it.
Well, I just want to know.
So yeah, you can ask your question as a standalone to your property.
I'm trying to answer, we're trying to answer to that, because if it's a 35 feet or the 35 to mid slope.
Does staff know the answer to that?
Madam Chair, I can speak to what code does say. Yeah, so since that's not new information by any means, if with a sloped roof, I believe we measure to the midline of that slope, so not the peak.
Okay. Okay, so I think any motions thank you for your input. I think even that question was helpful. Okay, so I think any motions we've attempted to make have died at this point. So I'm open to a new motion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer,
move to defer this item to October 4th.
will that give you enough time to regroup, or would you like more time than that? That's plenty of time. Okay, great. Great.
Second.
Great. We have a second from Commissioner Moore. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer.
sorry, gentlemen. Sorry to everybody. We kind of stepped in that one, but yeah, I mean, obviously we're conflicted. I think that in general, it's, a positive project that we all like. I think there's just things to work through. So deferral at this point is probably the best option.
Okay. Okay, so will the clerk please call the vote? Oh, sorry, we have a motion on the table to defer to October 4th meeting on item number 4. This is PUD 21-41 at 2588 North Bogus Basin Road. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Then
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Benfrock,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna just take a quick 5-minute break and then we will be back with item number 6. for Lauren Winsett at 3855 West Pine Avenue, a variance to encroach into the rear yard setback. We'll first hear from staff. Please go ahead, Mr. Moser.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The applicant is requesting a variance to encroach into the rear setback for proposed two-car detached garage with an ADU on 0.13 acres located at 3855 West Pine in an R1C zone. The subject property currently contains a detached single-car carport, which encroaches about 1 foot into the rear setback. And as you can see from the aerial photograph, the surrounding area is comprised of an established single-family residential neighborhood. And the new building is located behind the existing house and adjacent to the rear property line, as marked on red. This site plan shows the location of the proposed two-car garage and the ADU, which is a 1,176 square foot, two-story detached building. The new building is proposed to be set back approximately 10 feet from the rear property line, and adjacent to the north of the building, as you can see here, is the existing main house. There is an exceptional circumstance associated with the subject property to justify the encroachment into the rear setback. This justification includes the site providing 2 off-street parking spaces for the existing house, which is required by the development code. And to accommodate the width of 2 full-size parking spaces, the garage will encroach 5 feet into the rear setback. And currently, the subject property only provides 1 parking space. There are no other viable design solutions to accommodate the 2 full-size parking spaces without a variance. In particular, a tandem garage or attaching it to the existing house will not work. Both solutions could potentially damage mature trees on site. There's a mature shade tree located along the west property line, which could be damaged with a tandem configuration for the garage, or a mature conifer tree located along the street frontage of 38th Street, which could potentially be damaged if you attach it to the main house. Also on this slide, you can see rough elevations of the building and a conceptual picture of what the type of building proposed is. I would note that the applicant is proposing clear-story windows on the 2nd floor, and a stairwell to the 2nd floor is interior to the structure. The applicant did provide signatures from several neighbors expressing no opposition to the variance. However, the neighbor adjacent to the south did state concerns of the variance in terms of the building height and privacy to their backyard and property. To address these concerns, the applicant moved the building away from the rear property line, so it now provides a 10-foot setback instead of the 8 that was originally proposed. And they're using clear-story windows on the 2nd floor on the south and west side. And they moved the stairwell, as noted, interior to the building to protect this neighbor's privacy. These are the pictures of the trees in question. So you can see the large tree along the back property line, so the west property line. So the large mature shade tree, probably a class 2. It's about, I'd probably say 40 feet in height. And then the other one shows the conifer tree. It's about 20 feet in height, mature right along the street frontage. So in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the variance since it complies with all the required findings as per code. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. It looks like Lauren maybe is online there. Great. Lauren, please unmute when you're ready. You can start your camera if you'd like to. Please start with your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes.
Great. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for hearing my application, and I hope it's a little simpler than the last one we just heard. I learned a lot. That was very interesting. I don't have much more to add than Mr. Moser did. He's been very helpful throughout this process. I did have a neighborhood meeting about this where I learned of the concerns of my neighbors. So he was very helpful in assisting me in making sure that I could create a structure that protects that privacy. But as he stated, this is in an established neighborhood. It is not in any formal subdivision. There aren't any CC&Rs. There are actually a couple of homes, one within a block from me that has a 2nd story, as well as another block and a half just from my home that has a 2nd story. And again, as he stated, I've done many things to create some privacy. The hardships I think you'll want me to address here are that the unique circumstance of my property that results is that there's not enough room based on any setback requirements to create the 2 off-street parking spaces as the city code requires. And as he also mentioned that no matter which way I go, it will go into a setback. This property is a corner lot, and the shared property line with the neighbor to the south, that is his side property line. and my back setback. So he actually only has a 5-foot setback on that fence line where I have a 15-foot setback currently. So that is why I'm hoping that encroaching only 5 feet into that setback and having a 10 feet as opposed to his 5-foot setback will be acceptable to you. The other majority of the homes in the area also have enough room for 2 off-street parking spaces. And often I see them parked right up, like up along a property line or even 5 feet from that property line. This is not a self-created hardship. This is not something that I've done anything to create. It's the way that the home was structured or built upon the lot. And also, it was also created by the city code requiring that I have these 2 off-street parking spaces, which I'm complying with. A couple other things to note is it will not be material detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to the property or improvements of the property owners or the quiet enjoyment thereof. It will be harmonious with the neighborhood and will not be injurious to other parties, and it will not grant me any special privileges over that of my neighbors. It will not be in conflict with the comprehensive plan and will not affect a change in zoning. And it is not in conflict with public interest or general land or conditions in the vicinity of the application. So other than what I've stated here, Mr. Mosier has shared, this is just a modest neighborhood with evolving characteristics. When I moved into the neighborhood, the neighbor across the street had actually framed in a 2nd story, and I was excited to see that that was an option. After I moved in, they abandoned the property, so that was actually taken down. But I'm excited to be able to improve upon the neighborhood. If my intent is to make the entire property look much better than it does now. I'll be updating the home's exterior to match that of the ADU with fresh paint, and I will be improving the landscaping. And my goal is that it really has a positive impact on the entire neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Winsett.
Thank you.
First, before we move to questions, I'll just check real quick. Do we have a representative from the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association present? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move to questions from the commission for staff of the applicant.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
A question for staff. So on packet page 304, it states there's an exceptional circumstance associated with the property, and goes on to talk about the 2 off-street parking spaces being part of that exceptional circumstance. To clarify, because 2 off-street parking spaces is kind of required for a project like this, is it just the exceptional circumstance being that it wasn't originally planned when it was built to allow for that, those dimension parking spaces on that property?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that is correct. I believe the house was built around in the 70s, and it was built with a single carport on it. To put a 2-car garage, and the house sits up in the front, to put a 2-car garage in the back, there's just no space to do that without damaging a mature tree in the process.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Quick question for staff. David, I know you don't know this exactly, but approximately how far was the distance from the back of the proposed ADU to the west property line?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the building is currently 22 feet as proposed from the west property line, which is that interior side property line. So
Right, correct.
Yeah, 22 feet.
Great, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, next we'll move to public testimony. Do we have anybody in-house or online that would like to testify on this item? Please come on up or virtually raise your hand. We did have one sign up, Walter Cameron. It does not look like he's present tonight though. Okay, seeing none, then we'll go back to, it would be the applicant's opportunity for a 5-minute rebuttal. Ms. Winsett, do you have anything else to add? There's not much to rebut.
No, I don't believe there is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll close the public portion of the hearing and the item is before the commission.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Finfrock.
Move to approve CVA 21-43, along with the standard and recommended conditions of approval. And I know there was really no opposition, but just to, oh, sorry, maybe I should let somebody second. Just moving things along.
Second. Great. We have a second from Commissioner Moore, and I will hand it back over to Commissioner Finfrock for a
Thank you,
discussion.
Madam Chair. It looks like there's a hardship associated with this property. And I think the applicant tried to make efforts to appease the neighbors by moving that stairway on the inside and try to accommodate some of those desires of the neighborhood. So I think she's worked on her behalf to kind of remedy the situation. So for that reason, I'm in support of this application.
Great.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
And we're obviously in support of the application. And in addition, because the neighbors, the property line on the neighbor side is a side yard and it's a rear yard setback, I'm comfortable with the variance of this location.
Great. Okay, without any further discussion, we have a motion on the table to approve CVA 21-43 at 3855 West Pine Avenue. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Then
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Finfrock,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great. Okay, so moving on to item number 9. This is CVA 21-41 for Paul Hoffman at 4424 West Alpine Street. This is a variance for an accessory structure to exceed the size of a primary structure. We'll start with staff. When you're ready, please, Ms. Rain.
Okay. Madam Chair, members of the commission, this item before you is a variance for an accessory structure to exceed the size of a primary structure on 1.49 acres in an R1C single-family residential zone. The property is in a predominantly single-family neighborhood comprised mostly of urban-sized lots, and the Union Pacific Railroad right-of-way runs across the south of the lot between it and Alpine Street. The parcel currently has an existing home that is 1,368 square feet with 6 assorted detached accessory structures ranging in size from approximately 162 to 840 square feet. The applicant proposes to remove 3 of the detached accessory structures along the north property line and build a 1,994 square foot garage, which will be attached to an existing 480 square foot barn. The resulting structure would be 2,474 square feet and 180% larger than the house. The applicant seeks a variance to the standard, stating that the square footage of the existing home is very small in comparison to most properties in the area, and that structures exceeding 2,000 square feet exist in close proximity to the site. While there are other structures of similar size in the vicinity, they're either primary homes or accessory structures that meet the requirements of the code. Further, accessory structures are required to be compatible with neighboring properties in mass and design. The proposed structure is industrial in character with 5 garage doors and no fenestration on 2 sides. This would stand in stark contrast to the residential structures in the surrounding neighborhood. In conclusion, the planning team cannot identify a hardship or exceptional circumstance associated with the property. Thus, the planning team is recommending denial of the variance request, and the commission makes a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rain. Okay, next we'll hear from the applicant. Please, it's okay, take your time. Right on up here, please. Start with your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes.
My name's Paul Hoffman, 3235 Mountain View Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83704. Commissioners, thank you for hearing this. I have to say, to begin with, I was a little bit taken aback by the staff report. In June, I met with Josh Wilson and Sabrina with the planning staff. I got the impression that now they didn't overtly say, oh yeah, we think we're in favor of this, but I sure got the impression that they agreed that cleaning up the site, which is really a lot of what we're trying to do, I don't know if you have those pictures available that were part of the package submittal. There were a number of buildings and structures and trailers and lots of clutter, really, that we're trying to house in this structure. If you keep going, well, anyway, you can see there. You see that there are a number of structures along that north property line next to the alley. So we're trying to clean it up, get some of these trailers and other equipment pushed into this new structure. We'd like to keep the barn. We can discuss, well, the barn is the kind of the center structure there. It's, yeah, that one right there. We'd like to keep that, but if that is a major sticking point, then we certainly are willing to discuss that, just taking that out of there. At the end of the day, the hope is that by getting all these structures into the barn, they're protected. It cleans up the appearance of the site. And I'd like you to please note that the proposed structure is hundreds of feet, literally, well, maybe not, yeah, more than 100 feet from any adjacent property structures. Now, there is the property to the north, but again, that is not improved. There's a large lot on the other side of that alley. And so to my way of thinking, when the zoning code was written, as far as the relative size of the house and the garage, it can't, it's difficult to write an ordinance that picks up all circumstance. And obviously in this case, this is a large piece of property really for an urban area. It's 1.5 acres. And the other difficult issue that we were struggling with is, this original house, which is in the bottom left corner down there, faces Alpine Street. And in fact, there's a driveway that crosses the railroad tracks. So originally, when that house was constructed, that was the primary entrance. The city, in its wisdom, and I can't say whether this is right or wrong, has decided that the front of the property is actually there at that corner of Douglas. And I forget the other name of the street. So, and that's kind of awkward in the sense that the house isn't facing that way, and most of the house and the adjacent garage are to the west. As far as the building itself, the proposed structure, if we needed to add some fenestration, we could do that. We could add some windows. I realize it's a large kind of monolithic structure, but it's really no larger than, for example, the structure there to the east, the house and garage to the east. In fact, it's not as wide. So the sense is that we're so far away from anybody else. Nobody objected. None of the neighbors objected. I don't believe there's been anybody who's contacted the city. We had the site meeting. There weren't any comments. In fact, I think 17 of 25 folks signed off that they had no objection and were willing to put their names to it. Of course, there are multiple other people who own properties who are out of state, so it's very difficult to get their signature. So we don't have objections by the neighbors. We've satisfied the fire department as far as access. And we feel like this will it really is doing the community a favor by housing those multiple trailers and lawnmowers and a number of other items inside this garage. And so this really is a benefit to the community as opposed to a detriment, and that zoning code really just wasn't designed for this kind of circumstance because it is so unusual, the size of the lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, great. With that, I would ask before we get to questions, this is the Morris Hill Neighborhood Association. Do we have a representative present to speak on their behalf? Okay, seeing none, then we will go to questions from the commission for staff or the applicant. Yeah, just stay close by, just in case we have a question.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Blanchard.
and I guess this is just, so staff has said no, and by right, you could put 12 housing units on there. And why you wouldn't just move these trailers and boats and whatever it is out to self-storage and Federal Way and develop the site appropriately is kind of beyond me, frankly. Like, I just simply don't understand it.
Well, ultimately, that's probably what's going to happen. That the site will get developed. I don't think there's any question of that, but for the time being, the owner likes having this large lot and wants to live there.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
So packet page 343, it states that you could, that large structure could be split up into multiple buildings. So it's not a matter of, and I guess this is a question for staff. So it's not a matter of the total area of accessory structures. It's just a matter of the area of one specific accessory structure.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Moore, it's more about massing and making sure that it's compatible with what else is on the lot, what's around it. And so, yes, it's not the square footage itself. It's just.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
And to follow up on that, is there a limit to how many accessory structures or anything like that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Moore, no.
Well, I didn't hear that. What did she say?
She asked if there was a limit to the
Right.
number of accessory dwelling units.
And the
permitted.
answer was
There is not.
no limit.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
And just so we're all comparing apples to apples, Crystal, at total square footage, you're including the existing barn. Correct. So it's the existing barn plus the new proposed structure that's giving us that 2,400 and change square footage.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, correct.
Okay.
The structure on its own is 1,994 square feet.
So that structure on its own is still larger than the home. Okay.
Correct.
Great. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Finfrock.
question for the city. So could like an exceptional circumstance, could that be the size of the property or the size of the lot? Because the lot looks quite large.
Madam Chair, Commissioner from Prop, the city does not consider that as exceptional circumstance or did not find that to be the case.
How do you define that? Sorry, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Finfrock, it is in an R1C zone. The average lot size in that zone is 5,000 square feet. And thinking about how this might develop in the future, I'm thinking that's likely, it's probable, particularly in this area. And so putting a large structure there doesn't meet the finding, it didn't meet the findings for us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Am I moving too quickly? Okay. Okay, thank you. You can have a seat now.
May I? No
Unfortunately, you may
questions.
not.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Just questions. You will have an opportunity for rebuttal though. So just don't go too far. Okay, at this point, we would move to public testimony. Do we have anybody present tonight online or in person that would like to testify on this item? Okay, seeing none, then at this point, we would go to a 5-minute rebuttal. From the applicant, you don't have anything to rebut, so you're welcome to waive that, but this would be your chance to add any additional testimony if you'd like to.
So do I come to understand then that if we did two structures,
We unfortunately cannot answer your questions at this point.
okay, then, well, that's an interesting observation. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, with that, the public portion of the hearing is closed and the item is now before the commission.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I'm going to move to deny CVA 21-41 per the terms of the staff report.
Second.
Great. Second from Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Schaefer, would you like to discuss?
I can't think of another night where I've actually moved to deny 2 projects. This is a very unusual evening. And I think this is a very unusual situation. I think, I mean, per our deliberation and our questioning, I don't think we're opposed to your intentions at all, right? I think that we all are in agreement, like, yep, that looks good to clean up the site. I think we're just in that position where, you know, code sort of dictates one thing and there's really no argument against the code in this case. So, I mean, I appreciate the application. I appreciate the thought. I'm sorry for the confusion if there was, you know, direction from staff initially was not very clear. But it seems to me the easy way to resolve the situation is to come back with 2 separate structures that achieve the same thing. And I understand that that maybe seems counterintuitive, but again, you know, we're dealing with city code here, and sometimes city code can be counterintuitive. And you're in that exceptional circumstance in that you have a very large lot, a lot of space, and nothing that says you can't come back and have 2 structures that achieve what you want to achieve. So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'd love to hear my fellow commissioners' thoughts on it as well.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
I think absolutely. I'm in support of the denial, just because, I mean, a hardship to me would mean that if we denied it, you wouldn't be able to do it at all. But because if you split that into multiple different structures, it is still feasible. I see it as not a hardship at all, but as feasible in this particular site.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Blanchard.
I just want to reiterate my previous comments that the number of developable 1-acre sites on the Boise bench fit in a thimble. And yeah, so to see that this is what you would do with the site is it makes absolutely zero economic sense, and for sure does not fit with Blueprint Boise. I mean, this is obviously a site that needs to be built out with multifamily along that. And yeah, going barn dominium style on the Boise bench it doesn't make any sense to me.
I hope the record catches that barn dominium. I like that. But the only thing that I would add is that, you know, although all your neighbors today might think it's not a problem, you know, we are designing for the future and for all the neighbors that may live there in the future too, or even on this site in the future. And so that's why it's important that we adhere to the code as best we can, even if neighbors might support something that goes against the code. That's why we have the code as a reference. Okay, so with that, we have a motion on the table to deny CVA 21-41 at 4424 West Alpine Street. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Ted.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Blanchard.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Infrock.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, moving on to our last item of the evening. This is item number 10, CVA 21-32 for Trout Architects at 1810 West Lemp Street, a variance to encroach the rear yard setback. And we will start with staff. Please go ahead, Ms. Rain.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is a variance to encroach the rear yard setback at 1810 West Lemp Street. The applicant proposes to demolish an existing 1-story garage originally built in 1920 and only 1 foot away from the north property line, and build a new 2-story 2-car garage with office space above. Due to the parcel's configuration, the area to the north is the rear yard, which requires a 15-foot setback. You can see from the aerial photograph that these 3 parcels along Lemp were rotated at some point and go opposite the typical development pattern for the neighborhood, resulting in a side yard adjacent to the alley. As discussed in the project report, the planning team finds this unique configuration of the parcel to be exceptional circumstance related to the property, and thus warranting the granting of the variance. Upon submittal of the request, the applicant proposed to place the new garage in the same location as the existing garage. After discussions with the architect, a 5-foot setback was agreed upon instead of the 1 foot, and the planning team moved forward with a recommendation of approval. However, the planning team was made aware after the late correspondence deadline that the owner would like to maintain the existing 1-foot setback or 14-foot encroachment. The planning team is not in support of this request. This is new construction, and with that, any legal nonconforming status is lost. As such, the planning staff recommends approval of a 5-foot setback due to the unique shape of the lot to provide compatible like yard setbacks to the neighbors to the north and to preserve open space. The request for a 5-foot setback meets the findings for a variance. The commission makes the final decision and may approve, deny, or amend conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rain. Okay, so next we'll hear from the applicant. Please start with your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes.
My name is Sean Weston, Trout Architects, 2504 West Kootenai Street in Boise. Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'm representing the Michael Cornwell family. Michael Cornwell is also here tonight. I first want to mention that this family project is intended to be able for the owner to travel back and forth from their home in the state of Washington to be near Boise family. As such, they wanted to be good neighbors and do the right thing in the community. As the planner, Jesse, noted, this discussion and review is about the rear yard variance concerning the north property of the site with access to an existing garage off the east side property alleyway. Concerning the staff's condition of moving the current building setback from 1'3" to 5 feet, we hope to offer some clarity to why we are asking for the variance tonight. The existing garage is tight to the rear corner of the site, and it's not set back from the alley. It's not convenient to park the car inside the garage. It's a 1-car garage now. The new garage door would be held back to the required 22 feet, including the alley, and would make it more workable for the parking. The rear yard shares a side yard with a newly built home addressed to 1408 North 19th Street. A detached new garage with an ADU is located off the alley, and a new swimming pool has been built along the southwest property adjacent the northern wall of the proposed new garage office building. This property owner has had no objection to the current setback of the existing garage, which would help to secure his pool area. This is a unique and favorable situation for both neighbors. There will be no openings in the north wall of the new building on the property. Currently, the subject backyard depth is about 32 feet to the existing carport, including a 6-foot wide back deck off the main house. Preserving the character of the neighborhood, we request your approval. A couple more points. This is a historic neighborhood, so we feel like we're still in the context of the buildings that are currently built there. The lot is a substandard lot at 4,410 square feet. A new building would be far more fire safe than the existing garage. 2 cars could be parked off the street. It would provide a home office for the owner when he travels back and forth from the state. We understand that the planning staff has made it their job to try to make the project code compliant. There has been some discussion with different setbacks on the rear property line. The existing setback gives the best advantage to the use of the rear yard requested. Some neighboring buildings in the context are built on property lines in the adjacent alley, so it's sort of keeping in the style. Some neighboring buildings in the context are built on the property lines around that particular site. We have worked to provide a rigorous notification and have signatures from neighboring owners and tenants with no objection to the variance request. The project also has a certificate of occupancy from the Historic Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weston. Next, we'd ask, do we have a representative from the North End Neighborhood Association that wants to speak on this item on their behalf? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move to the commission for questions for staff or for the applicant. Okay, cautiously moving forward with no questions.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
So the disagreement here really is a little bit less than 4 feet. I guess I understand the benefits, but this is, I guess, a question for the applicant and for staff. The benefits of the 5-foot setback is more space between the two neighbors. It's similar to a kind of a side yard setback, and it's similar to kind of the surrounding conditions.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Moore, correct. It would provide like yard setbacks and be more in conformance while still providing open space for the applicant.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
So, and then I guess the benefits of less setback is now you have more green space between the house and the garage. Are there any other kind of, I guess, what is the argument for the reduced setback from what staff is recommending? And besides kind of what you detailed it pretty thoroughly, but just the 4 feet is really, it sounds like
we sort of think that it's sort of an arbitrary number at this point, and that we'd rather have that extra feet in the yard space since it's a small lot to start with, and that it would be a benefit for the neighbor, so they wouldn't have to build a fence and create a 5-foot area behind the garage, which becomes fairly unusable space. So again, it's a unique situation. He's built a pool right behind it. In fact, he's already landscaped up to the existing garage over the property line as it occurs right now. So, and the owner has no objection to that.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
So just additionally, I know on a couple of these previous, no objection from the neighbor has kind of come into play as an argument for approval. But a question for staff is, when there's no objection from the neighbors and things like that, how much does that weigh on your decision or on your recommendation on these staff reports?
Chairman or Madam Chairman, Commissioner Moore, we do take that into account, but looking at this, the intensity is being almost doubled. It's going from 1 story to 2, and so as was mentioned before, keeping in mind future neighbors, we just want to make sure that there's that additional space. Neighbors now may not object, but a 2-story building 1 foot from the property line may be more impactful for future residents.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, then we'll move to public testimony. Do we have anybody online or in person that would like to testify on this item? If you're online, please virtually raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. I did have somebody sign up here named Jan Carpenter, but I don't see them online either. So with that, we would then move back to the applicant for a rebuttal. But there's not much to rebut. Would you like to waive that, or do you have, you're welcome to use that time? Great, okay. Let the record note that they are waiving that rebuttal time. Okay, so with that, we'll close the public portion of the hearing and the item is now before the commission.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Blanchard.
move that we approve CVA 21-32 at 1810 West Lemp Street for the variance to encroach the rear yard setback with all the conditions in the staff report.
Second.
Great, we have a second from Commissioner Schaefer. Commissioner Blanchard, would you like to start the conversation?
Sure. Thanks to the Trout Architects team here. I think this is very much in keeping with what we're seeing in the north end just about every time we meet here. The city is obviously pushing for more flex space and more housing and more density in the built up neighborhoods. And I think these kind of ADU projects with some home office space reflect what's happening in the larger economy. It's a good move for the city. So very much supportive of the project.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Madam Chair, yeah, I'm in support of the project and the motion, of course. I think in regards to condition number 2, the setback and encroaching into the setback, I think that this is a nice compromise. The 5-foot setback is a standard side yard setback. And I agree, this is a positive step for the neighborhood. But I think we also have to think long-term, right? And beyond the current owners of both properties. And it's always a challenge when we have these older neighborhoods and substandard lots and lots that have changed over the years. But again, I think in this situation, giving us the 5 feet makes some sense. It gives a little bit of that buffer for both properties. And in the future, that will be maintained past the current property owners. So I think long term, for the next 100 years, this is the best move for the property.
Okay, great. With that, we have a motion on the table to approve CVA 21-32 for Trout Architects at 1810 West Lemp Street. This is to approve with the current conditions as written in the staff report. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Dunn.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Blanchard.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Penfrock.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And this meeting is adjourned.